Welcome to Broad Eye, the podcast that explores knowledge gaps in ophthalmology and eye care.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Broad Eye podcast. I'm Dr. Bruno Fernandez and I'm here today with Patrick Sauvageau, CEO of Zilia. How's it going, Patrick?
Hi, good. Yourself?
All right, not too bad. I don't have my friend Sean here with me, so it's going to be just us. Fortunately, he couldn't make it. So I always want to know, like, the beginnings of very interesting companies like yours, right? So could you tell us a bit more about the story behind Zilia? How did it started? Who had the idea, and the early days of kind of like taking the leap from an idea to an actual company?
Sure. Well, to give you a little bit of context, I graduated myself from optometry back in 2010 from the University of Montreal. And then I completed a master's degree in visual sciences. Very early on, I realized that this academic project and what I was working on could eventually become an important clinical tool with significant impact, and that this had potential to become a real business opportunity. So along my brother Dominic, who has a PhD in chemical engineering, we then founded Zilia. The innovation we wanted to put forward was really at the crossroad of our two areas of expertise. And we recognized that there was a real need in the industry for early eye disease detection. So we started working on the concept and the business model, and that got us to 2017, where we hired our first employee, Nicholas. And this is where we really took off. And since then, we've built a strong multidisciplinary team to bring our vision to reality. As now we have expertise in diverse fields, ranging from biophotonics, software, AI, regulatory affairs, and business dev, among others. And we're now getting to the commercialization of our first product.
That's very cool. So that was actually a research that you did during the graduate students?
Exactly. When I was doing my master's, my master's degree, I focused on ocular oximetry. Back then, it was a novel concept, and I was exploring basically potential clinical aspect of this technology.
And so if you could explain, like, to a 5-year-old, what ocular oximetry is, like, for a lay audience.
Sure. Well, ocular oximetry is a non-invasive technique that measures oxygen saturation in the retina, so the back of the eye. More precisely, oxygen saturation is measured as a ratio of oxygenated hemoglobin relative to the total hemoglobin present in the blood. So this information is key as it gives us an important insight into the metabolism of the eye, and consequently in the development of pathologies. So to give a little bit of historical background, maybe, the first measurement of ocular oximetry dates back to 1959. Though the methods used back then were quite cumbersome, so it wasn't really until the last 2 decades that more user-friendly ocular oximeters were developed. So older generations of ocular oximeters really broke the ground in the field, but they could not be applied in a clinical setting. So Zilia brings forward a brand new technological platform with unprecedented capabilities and features in the field.
And so how does it do? Because I have a fairly good understanding of how, like, a normal oximeter works. Right? So basically, get the light that goes through your finger and detects on the other side, but you cannot get the light through the eye. So how does it work to measure the oxygen in the eye?
Yeah. So Zilia's technology is based on 3 things: imaging, spectrometry, and artificial intelligence. So it relies on a patented device and cloud-based software. To make it simple, the patient is placed in front of the device and looks at a target, just like with a retinal camera. Light is emitted from the device and travels through the eye. reflects on the retina and returns to provide two things: a series of images and spectra. And these spectra are analyzed in real time to enable oxygen saturation measurements.
And is it does it give you the oxygenation of the whole body, like in a way that it is a replacement for the finger oximeter, or is it specific to the oxygen going to regions of the retina?
Right. We can measure oxygen saturation anywhere in the eye. So you can actually, or the user can actually select the region of interest, so to speak, where he wants to be measuring the oximetry. So it can be anywhere in the retina, can be in the optic nerve, could be in the macular region, can be in the blood vessels. So it really depends on what you're looking at, basically.
And how accurate in terms of the area that you're targeting it is? Let me rephrase that. Like, how small of the area can you go?
So the targeted region is 300 micron in diameters. So it's fairly fairly small, and you can again select the region of interest where you want to be collecting the data.
And how long does it take for you to get a reading on in a given area?
Oh, we take a couple of measurements per second, and we're collecting in a continuous fashion. So you can take measurements. It takes a few seconds basically to have a couple of measurements, so to speak,
So
in real time.
So the report that comes out then, it's not just a number; it's more like a map.
So it's a graph of oxygen saturation over time, and the time being a few seconds.
Okay.
It's a bit like the digital oximeter in that sense, right? So it gives continuous readings. Now, quite often a few measures are enough, but in certain circumstances, you would want maybe to collect data over 10 seconds, for instance.
Okay. Switching gears a bit and talking a bit about like the practicality of the exam itself. So what is Zilia? Is it a machine? Is it a hardware, or is it like a software that can just be used with regular retinal cameras?
So it's we consider the Zilia Ocular, our first product, to be a new generation of retinal camera. So it's a retinal camera that enables the measurement of biomarkers in the eye. And the first biomarker of interest for us is oxygen saturation. So that's really how we perceive this.
And what is it? I mean, for a lay person there, we were talking about like measuring the oxygen in the eye. Why would that be important?
Mm-hmm.
What are the clinical applications of it?
Right. Well, during the last decade, rapidly growing number of studies showed that oxygen dysregulation is linked to several ocular pathologies, such as glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, and macular degeneration, right? The three main causes of blindness. By measuring oxygen levels non-invasively, we want to enable clinicians to identify issues before irreversible damage occurs, to allow earlier treatment, better disease management, and patient outcomes. We also want to help in the development of improved treatments and drugs.
And those diseases you mentioned, like glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, they do have like clinical signs that ophthalmologists use like to detect disease rather early. Would Zilia be an additional tool, or would it be able to detect like those diseases even before those clinical signs are noticeable?
Well, let's take the example of glaucoma. Glaucoma is often referred as the silent thief of sight, right? Because patients don't notice any symptoms until the disease has progressed and damaged, typically more than 70% of the nerve tissue. And this destruction is permanent, making it extremely important to seek treatment as early as possible. While in previous decades, again, glaucoma has been primarily attributed to elevated intraocular pressure. But this interpretation has gradually been replaced by the development of optic neuropathy, or the destruction of the optic nerve, if you will, as the central concept of the disease. It is now recognized that the loss of metabolic function precedes structural and functional damage that we can perceive with current clinical tools such as retinal cameras, visual fields, and OCTs. So this is where our technology can help, right? Because we can use ocular oximetry to track metabolic function over time. And Zilia's technology could significantly change the approach to preventing, screening, and treating glaucoma worldwide. It's similar with other pathologies like diabetic retinopathy, where oxygen dysregulation would precede the current visual markers for this condition.
Is Zilia already used on clinical practice, or is still in the research phase?
We're still, so we are currently conducting clinical studies. The device is used for investigational use only. At this current stage, we are working really heavily to get our regulatory approvals by the end of 2022 to enter the clinical market then.
And you're going to focus on the Canadian market first, I guess?
We're going to focus on the Canadian and US markets first, and then rapidly after Europe. So that's really where we want to focus to begin with.
And so it's not in the clinic yet, but like maybe were you able to get any feedback from the patients that were part of your studies already on how they perceive that kind of test? Because like patients are funny, right? Like, I mean, so they, of course, sometimes they prefer something non-invasive, instead of like being cut or poked at, but some of them tend to not trust so much, like, I mean, if something that is not invasive, so did you get any feedback from patients on how they perceive your device?
Yeah, I think that the fact that it's not invasive and that it concerns the eyes, right? I think it's paramount. We wanted to create a device that could be easily used in a clinical setting. It needed to be quick. It needed to be painless. It needed to be comfortable for both the patient and the eye care professional. By using a low intensity light for only a few seconds, we're able to capture crucial information about the eye's metabolism. So, and this is no different to what patients currently experience during a comprehensive eye exam. And besides the convenience of it all, our other goal is accessibility. So we are aiming to make our technology available to as many clinicians as possible. And my personal hope for this product is that it becomes a standardized eye testing tool for all eye care professionals worldwide.
Yeah, that would be. Screening tools are always very much needed, right? Like, I mean, given the prevalence of the diseases that you mentioned, and sometimes the inability of screening, like, I mean, the huge number of people.
Yeah, exactly. And over time, we aim to even predict the risk of having the disease, an ocular disease, in the first place. That's where we're heading. Predictive medicine.
Yeah. Okay, it's good that you touched on that, because I know you're very like tech oriented, and it is Zilia itself is just not a camera, right? There's a lot of heavy tech behind it, like artificial intelligence, and I believe the exams are also stored in the cloud. Can you expand a bit on this role of Zilia as a predictive tool of future disease?
Well, sure. Again, by collecting imaging or images of the eye, of the back of the eye, and also by doing spectrometry and using AI, as you mentioned, there's a lot of different biomarkers that we can pick on for ocular diseases to begin with. So we are conducting a lot of research about this for a lot of different pathologies. So there's really a lot that we are currently looking into to be able to go really earlier in terms of again in terms of screening, but eventually in terms of hopefully predicting the risk factors or the risk of eventually getting glaucoma or diabetic retinopathy, macular degeneration, and many other ocular diseases. That part, and we're also providing, hopefully, will be helping the R&D of therapies and drugs. And as I said before, 3 of the most prevalent ocular diseases are mediated by underlying vascular mechanism. So pharma companies develop drugs that aim to regulate oxygen consumption in the retina, but have no means currently to validate the effect. And this is where our technology again comes into play. Zilia provides unprecedented data, enabling pharmaceutical companies to better direct their resources to create and validate more efficient drugs at a quicker pace.
Yeah. So if I understood correctly, it would give those pharmaceutical companies a more quantitative way of measuring the outcome of their treatments, right? Instead of waiting for the clinical changes to appear, which usually comes a lot later.
Exactly, and I think we're not the only one perceiving ocular oximetry as a really crucial biomarker. A lot of pharma companies are focusing on developing drugs that will better regulate oxygen consumption, and in that sense, they need a device to be able to measure the impact of a potential drug, a potential candidate. And I think that's really something where we can help. We can also help for instance, in the context of clinical trials for pharma companies. We can also help in the selection of the patients based on certain risk factors, for instance. So that's why we believe that we can eventually partner with pharma companies to help them.
Yeah, that's a pretty much a no-brainer as a collaboration. And are the exams all stored like in the cloud, and are they used like somehow to improve the algorithm to prevent? I mean, to try to predict
Yes,
the development of disease.
There's this aspect that we can use, big databases of data to enhance and improve algorithms down the line. But and as you know, with all cloud-based systems, it facilitates the issuing of automatic updates also, and it enables better technical support to our clients. And the biggest advantage is that the information captured by the device is updated in real time to the eye care professionals' systems. And this allows flexibility for this professional to review and analyze the results where and when they see fit, right? So there's certainly a lot of advantages to build a cloud-based system.
So every device that will be ever sold will collect images that will be stored like in one single server.
In a secure environment, absolutely, mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But you're mentioning images, that's true, but also spectra.
Okay.
Because it's really a dual output, right?
So I guess, I mean, the more devices you have operating worldwide, the better the algorithm will be, right? Because you have more data to think.
Exactly. That's exactly what we aim to do. Absolutely.
That's very cool. Is Zilia, it's going to be an ophthalmological company, or do you see that technology being used for other areas of medicine?
Yeah, I mean, with our platform technology, we feel that the possibilities are endless, right? We often say that the eye is a window into someone's health. It is the only place in the body where we can directly assess blood vessels, and it is an extension of the brain. So it is possible to get information in various conditions, such as ocular, obviously, but also neurological and cardiovascular conditions, but also cancers and even more by assessing biomarkers present in the eye. So by using the same exact technology, our team envisions a future where our simple non-invasive eye scans could provide a range of information that would benefit your ocular, but also your global health. So there's a lot of potential applications to this very technology.
So basically, you can with the imaging of the eye, a person can become aware of a disease that is not in the eye, a systemic disease like a hypertension or diabetes.
Yeah, exactly. We can measure in the eye biomarkers that could be related to a lot of different conditions. So we could eventually see our technology be used by neurologists, GPs, cardiologists, people in sports medicine. So there's a lot of potential application. As I said, it really seems like the possibilities are endless with the fact that we can collect a wide range of biomarkers.
And so you mentioned that on those biomarkers like oxygen, it's the first one you can focus on. What is next? You just sparked my curiosity there.
Yeah, sure. So although I cannot at this stage mention them publicly, there are a couple of projects, really cool projects that we have in ophthalmology with other biomarkers, but also in neurology already. So over the next few months and years, we really hope to do a lot of different proofs of concepts with different biomarkers for again a wide range of applications.
That's good, Pat. So I think we're ready to wrap. Thank you very much for your time. I learned a lot, like from a technology that I was unaware of, surprisingly. So thank you very much for what you do. I do agree that this is a technology that can be a game changer, make it a lot easier, like to screen and a large number of patients, and then find those that we will eventually have diseases, like that are, as you said, are silent killers. They won't cause any symptoms to prompt like a visit to the doctor. So keep doing what you're doing, and I really hope that you go through those regulatory hurdles as quick as possible and start rolling that thing in as many clinics as you can.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, it was our pleasure. Take care, man. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
And that concludes today's episode of the Broad Eye Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Of course, ratings and reviews are always welcome. And you can certainly share this episode with any of your colleagues or friends who might enjoy it. Thanks for listening.